Welcome to this lesson. So in the last lesson we looked at the anonymous function, that is a window onload function. So I said that everything would be inside this particular line of code, right? So first of all, let me cut and paste this because our initial states would come in here. So now we're going to be looking at the initial state. So we're going to assign the variables. We're going to create variables that are going to be used throughout the code, okay? So right at the top of this function in here, we'll have the initializing lines of code because we want them to be executed as soon as possible. So when the player starts playing the game, everything is ready. So that's why I'm placing it at the top of our code. First of all, let's create a variable called num, var num. So this particular variable will hold the number of the canvas, okay? There are 9 different canvases and each has a number associated with it. So it will hold numbers from 1 to 9, okay? And then let's create another variable called box. The box variable will hold the canvas element that was clicked at that time. So we'll be using this element to draw on it. So these canvas elements, 1, 2, 3, there are 9 different canvas elements. So which particular canvas element was clicked will be stored by the box element. So next, let's declare the ctx variable. It's a short term for context variable. So this variable will hold the context of the canvas. I already explained what the context is in the canvas basic section. It doesn't have to be ctx. It could be context, it could be con, or it could be anything completely different from all of these letters as well. So then let's declare a variable that will store the number of turns played by the players. As you know, a tic-tac-toe game can only have a maximum of 9 turns. So let's initialize this variable to 1 for now because the first turn will be 1. We later write code to increment this value as the player starts playing. Okay, so the turn in here, it starts from 1. So next, we'll declare 2 variables that will hold important array values. These will be one-dimensional arrays. I already told you what arrays are in the basic section, so please look at that. So var filled. So this variable filled, this fill variable will hold 9 array values that will let the browser know if a box already has something drawn on it or not. These values will be used to determine if a player can draw on the box. Next, we'll create another variable called symbol. This is also going to be an array variable. So the variable symbol will have 9 array values that will hold which symbol each box holds, either an X or an O. So we'll be filling it with an X or an O, okay? To determine which box has which symbol, or is which box was filled by which player. So the next variable, I already talked about this next variable in the algorithm module, that is a previous module. Do you remember how I listed out 8 different conditions to check? And if one of them matches, a player will be declared as the winner. Do you remember that? So we'll be sorting those conditions in this variable, that is the winner variable. So we'll be storing the conditions in the variable winner, that is the win conditions in the variable winner. Let's just declare the variable for now. We won't be assigning values to it right now. We'll go for that later. Okay? So we'll be assigning values for all of these later on, okay? So finally, we need to keep track of whether the game is over or not. Because if the game is over, the player shouldn't be allowed to draw on the canvas after that. Am I right? So we need a variable to keep track of that. For that, we'll declare a Boolean variable called game over and assign it a value of false. Now why false? I'm making the false value as the default value since the game isn't over yet. If our browser is going through these lines of codes, that means that the game is just starting. So by default, the game over value has to have a value of false. So later we'll change it to true to indicate that the game is over. So once the game is over, or once the game is a draw, or that is if someone has won, or if the game is a draw, then we'll turn this value, we'll turn the value of this variable into false. I'm sorry, I have to give var in here. So var game over is equal to false. Alright, so now we also have 2 more variables for our AI. So I'm going to create variables that will depict the human player and the AI player, and then I'll assign them with their symbol values. So for human, I'm creating a variable called human. It's going to have value x. There's the string x as its value. That's why I've placed it within quotes. So this basically means that the human player is always going to be X, and as I told you before, the human player is going to be starting the game by default, and as you know, in tic-tac-toe, X starts by default, right? So the human player is going to have the symbol X, and the AI player is going to have the symbol. So we'll be using this particular variable later on to refer to the human player. So whenever we need the value X, we'll be using the variable human. Okay. Similarly, we'll be using the variable AI to denote O in here. So we'll also create an object called result. I already told you how objects work in the JavaScript basics section, so please refer to that. So we'll be creating an object called result that will hold all the results of the game tree generated by the minimax function. So the minimax function creates a game tree for each of the move, right? Each possible move. So we'll be holding all the results of all the final states so that our AI knows which is the optimal next state. Okay, it will hold the indices of the next possible move, that is a number of the box of the next possible move, and it will also store the value associated with that move, that is the +1, -1, those values. Okay, so it will store that value as well. Then it will select the optimal move from all the listed moves. So once it has everything stored, as you know, objects can have multiple values stored within each value. So each value can have multiple values within it. So each value in here will have the index of the next move, index of the box, and then the score. The index of the box, score. So that's how it, like this. Okay, index and then score. There you go. So that's it for this lesson. So we've created all the initial states. So let's look at how to fill these values in the next lesson. I'll see you there. Thank you.